Hi guys, welcome to the stream. This is episode 1 of Grey Bane, or as it's laid out, Bane Grey, but something like that. Obviously, I'm Bane.
And I'm Grey.
Right, so basically what we're looking to kick off on today, we're looking mainly at discussing the shit show that was Echo. I think we've got slightly differing views on how bad it actually ended up being in the grand scheme of things, but we'll see how it goes. So, I guess you can start off. What were your initial thoughts, having watched all lovely 5 episodes of it?
Well, my initial thoughts were confusion, because I deeply did not know what was going on in the first episode.
Yeah.
I later found out after watching all 5 episodes that this was actually a sequel or a continuation of the Hawkeye series, because apparently Echo is introduced in the 2021 Hawkeye series, which I have never seen. So I kind of went into this with the wrong idea. I thought this was going to be a new story with a new character that we hadn't been introduced to before, and this was going to be the first introduction. So I was deeply confused when we kept having all of these flashback moments or moments that were part of other TV shows that I hadn't seen before, because it all kept jumping around, and I was very like, am I supposed to know something? Like, and as far as I remember, there were no dates. Like, there wasn't a year mentioned. The only time we got like a year kind of was when the kid grew up, and it was like 20 years later. And I was like, so is this set? When is this set in the Marvel timeline? Since apparently it's supposed to be within the universe. So yes, that was my first reaction: confusion, followed quickly by boredom. I was deeply bored throughout this.
I just need to say, I didn't make it to confusion. The gap was just boredom. It was just boredom.
No, because I was trying to figure out like what, when Hawkeye appeared, I was like, okay, so clearly he's in his non-Avengers outfit, but I was like, I can't place it. I don't know. So like I say, first episode, deeply confused. Second, third, and fourth, fifth episode,
He was dressed like he was in Endgame.
bored. Oh no, end of the fifth episode, more confusion.
Yeah.
More confusion. So, confusion, boredom, confusion.
But don't you think that this is like part of the issue, particularly with Marvel as a whole? Because all of these series are basically part of this universe. But in order to make people watch or try to make people to watch the next series, they seem to ground basically it in the previous series. Now, they've realized that this is actually a very big mistake. You know that from basically the Marvels, where to get an understanding of the Marvels, you have to realistically watch, I think it's 2, a minimum of 2 of the Disney Plus series as being Miss Marvel and, oh God, I can't remember. Scarlet Witch.
Oh, WandaVision.
WandaVision, that's it. So you have to watch those, because that basically is what introduces the other 2 characters from the Marvels. And then you need to watch at least Captain Marvel, as well as potentially Avengers Endgame. And yeah. So there's quite a lot of backstory that realistically you have to watch in order to go see that film. So what they did was they did a recap at the beginning, which is exactly what they've done in the first episode of Echo. But the problem with it is the recap usually is shit. Like, it's fine to do a recap, but you need to at least cover the main points. If you haven't watched Hawkeye, which you haven't, you won't know why realistically she kills or tries to kill Kingpin. There's no explanation in the beginning of Echo, her motivation of why she shot Kingpin, other than what Hawkeye tells her. But then there is no explanation of why she would just believe Hawkeye saying, I wasn't the one that killed your father, for the crack, when she saw someone who looked like Hawkeye.
I agree, and that's why I was confused, because it was like one scene, she's best friends with Kingpin, they're hanging out, working together, eating meals, all that lovely stuff. And then it's literally a 180 spin of, oh, now I have to kill this person. But like as the audience, you can kind of figure out why, because clearly it was Kingpin that caused the death of her father. But to her as the character, it's like, you haven't been told any of this. No proof, no anything. You're going to believe a random hero on the street versus the guy that essentially helped raise you, look after you, especially when you get more of the backstory of Kingpin and Echo, that they actually did a lot together. It wasn't just like they hung out a little, like he was genuinely helped raise her essentially.
When he beats the shit out of the ice cream man, and then she comes up and hoofs him twice when she's like 7, you sat there going, you're clearly fucking mental. Like, this paints her as like almost like the hero of this story, but she is not a hero character. She's just a slightly less worse villain.
And see, this again, this contributed to confusion. A lot of confusion is going to be said throughout this stream, because I was like, am I supposed to like this character? For the first few episodes, I genuinely couldn't tell. I was like, am I supposed to be on her side? Because she clearly has a grudge against Kingpin, which, okay, he contributed to the death of her father. However, she doesn't seem to have shown any remorse for the people that she's killed. Plus, she actually blew up an entire warehouse, what I assume was probably full of people, to get revenge against Kingpin's organization. And don't get me wrong, the majority of those people were probably criminals. But you're still killing them.
And to go further than that, it seems genuinely like she has zero fucks given about any of her family. Like, she puts them into danger. She basically uses Biscuits. She manipulates him to do what she wants to do. And she puts her family members in danger throughout it and seems to have zero concern about what she's doing.
Until the final 10 minutes of the final episode. Yeah. That's when she suddenly cares.
Yeah, when they've apparently got to paint her as being the hero.
Yeah.
You've got someone who, for 99% of this episode, if you asked anyone, would you compare this person to a hero or a villain? They'd say villain.
Yeah. I will say that it does seem as if they attempted to do some sort of character arc with her, going from a henchman of the villain to being a hero / anti-hero. However, it just felt incredibly rushed because they only had 5 episodes. So we literally went from her being a henchman to her wanting to get revenge against Kingpin, and then even saying that she wants to be queen, and not just like get revenge. She wants to take over his empire, is the understanding of that conversation, which again, it doesn't imply that she's a hero. It implies that she just wants to be the main villain. To cut to what I can only imagine in actual story time is 1 or 2 days later, boom, she's like, oh no, forget your pain, live in peace, like, and all that stuff. And I'm like, there's clearly a bit missing here where they need to have an actual story develop where she starts to feel remorse for what she's done. She realizes that she's been led down the wrong path and starts making amends. But it's literally, it's
too close to the end.
Yeah, it happens like so quick as well.
10 minutes before the end of the series. You see, I mean, I see what you're saying with that. You could say that is a character arc for the character, but there's zero development of the character apart from the fact that she gets magic powers.
Oh, don't even get me started on the magic powers.
Like,
Don't even get me started.
what exactly are the limits of her powers? What exactly are her powers? Like, she can harken back to her ancestors, only the female ancestors, because obviously it's a Marvel show, and they haven't yet had time to learn from the Marvels and the absolute catastrophe that was financially. So they're still pushing, obviously, the girl power message and all of that sort of stuff. So it's only female ancestors that she can harken back to, because they are the protectors. I'm not sure how that worked historically, but okay. But you look at basically all the things that she can do. It seems like, well, it can give you super strength. It can basically allow you to do anything that you need to do in any given situation. It allows you to heal. It allows you to enter people's minds. It allows you to basically stun people by putting your fingers like this on their chest when she stops Kingpin in the final episode from basically lamping her. You said that.
Just so that people know,
what
this
is her power?
Spoilers heavy.
Oh yeah, sorry. Probably should have a spoiler sign. But
that's just it. Like, when I read up on the character from the comic books, she doesn't have these super.
No, she has
abilities.
She has basically like an instinctual memory which allows her to immediately recognize and copy anything that basically she sees someone else do.
Yeah,
so she can mirror their combat style directly back at them.
She echoes it back at them.
Yeah, which hence the name. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Well, actually, I didn't mind the way they did the echo bit in the name of it with the ancestor stuff, because I was like, okay, this could be quite cool, because it's like it's you are hearing the echoes of your ancestors. However, I didn't like the way they just did it. Was just magic powers. I was like, especially the healing at the end. I was really disappointed by that. And
if it was,
but I'll come on to the healing in a minute. Because
I know what you're saying. If it was like abilities or skills that they had that she doesn't have, that I mean, how that's gonna sort of frame itself in like a hero aspect or anything like that in a modern day Marvel, seeing as technology is better now than it was then, it's debatable.
But not technology, just like it could have been like, oh, an ancestor has experienced having to fight before. Boom, here's the fighting style that they used. Like, you could have several ancestors that have different fighting styles, so you can adapt to different situations quite well.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the way I would have tried to do it, especially with the way they were doing it. Like I said, I didn't mind the idea of having it an ancestral thing. I just feel the way they did it, because essentially they used 3 ancestors, and one of them was a mother.
1, 2, 3,
4 if you include the original. I'm still not sure if that person at the start was a god or something.
Magical tree person.
Yeah, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, so there was her. There was the gunslinger.
Yeah, there was
that whole scene was so weird with the gunslinger. Like, the flashbacks were horrendous.
I thought I don't know what game they were playing with
Stick
the ball. Yeah, is that where?
That's where the woman goes all girl boss and basically wins, even though.
Yeah, but is that lacrosse? That's lacrosse, right? That's where that originated.
Probably.
I don't know. We're not American. We don't play lacrosse in the UK.
But basically, there was never any female stickball players.
No. Yeah, I get that. But again, like, when I was watching that scene and watching it unfold with the whole, they're winning, then the other team brings out their secret player, and then he starts dominating the game.
Oh, you mean Roy Bridge?
Yeah, and then this woman player who is the ancestor, she kind of gives up, and I'm like, that's a terrible attitude to have as a player, because I originally thought this was just a fun, friendly sort of game, but then it turns out no, you get a bit of dialogue that tells you, oh, we're going to be exiled if we lose this game, and I was like, oh, this is actually for high stakes, and she's giving up very easy. Like, she loses the ball at one point, and instead of chasing after the player that took the ball from her, she just stands around looking upset. I'm like, no, run back,
You
do
might
something.
use the term has a hissy fit.
Well, I wouldn't, but it is a term.
But yeah, basically she just stops,
Yeah,
refuses to do anything.
she gives up, and then another thing with this power, does it only manifest in this town?
Because that's
Because
where they're from.
yes,
Maybe.
but is that the limit of this power? Like, because when she was in New York fighting against like Daredevil, and I'm sure she must have been in life or death situations while she was working for Kingpin.
Yeah.
Did the power never manifest then?
Yeah, God knows. Like, it doesn't seem like it did. I mean, one of the things which confused me, to touch on what you said there about the fight with Daredevil, for instance, which, I mean, I could talk for 20 minutes about how it was complete shit, considering it only lasted 96 seconds and was all of the time that Daredevil actually spent within the series. But the problem that I had is it's made to look in episode 1 that Hawkeye basically knocks Echo down and could easily kill her. And yet she supposedly almost holds her own against Daredevil. Whereas Daredevil's probably the better hand-to-hand combat out of the two. But
Is that
the
necessarily
thing,
true? Hawkeye is an assassin.
he's an assassin, yes, but he's better range. He's better with his bow.
Okay,
So
I'll allow that.
hand-to-hand combat, I'd bet on Daredevil.
Sure. Yeah, like I also felt that the supernatural stuff it took away from the fact that she'd clearly worked hard growing up to learn how to fight and take care of herself and all of that sort of stuff, being raised by her father and that. So I felt that the superpowers just kind of took away from her own achievements. It was like, okay, she's incapable of doing something by herself, so boom, magic power to the rescue. And I was just a bit like, no, you're taking achievements away from this character, this who's worked extremely hard. Like, learning martial arts is not something you do overnight. It takes years of dedication. So the fact that it was just kind of like, oh, okay, then we'll give her a magic power. It's like, that's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. It's basically they needed to make her powerful and to give her a reason for basically being a character. But you can have a character who's more grounded than that by basically putting them in a real sort of circumstance. For instance, Daredevil doesn't really have any magic powers other than the ability to hear.
Yeah.
He was trained to fight being blind. So he's probably the closest character that you'd say to like a Batman. He uses his, he doesn't rely on special powers basically to fight, other than the fact that his hearing's really good. But yeah, I just think that they wanted to inject something, and it was realistically a box ticking exercise through the fact that they wanted a Native American, despite the fact that having a Native American character does not mean that you're appeasing all Native Americans, because historically, most of the Native American tribes absolutely fucking hated one another. But they've ticked that box. They then tick deaf person, and then they ticked amputee, which Echo
Yeah.
wasn't. As far as I'm aware, obviously I might be wrong, Echo wasn't an amputee in the comics.
No, she wasn't.
No. So,
Also, Ben, correct
yeah.
me if I'm wrong here, but she was originally injured in New York.
She was in. No, she was injured near the Indian encampment.
Oh, was she? Okay.
Are you talking about when she lost her leg?
No, 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 no. When she's grown up and she's after at the end of episode 1, she shoots Kingpin and then she's fleeing back to Tamaha, I think it's called, the town that
We don't know, because I think, if I remember rightly, and I am trying to forget as much of this as possible, but I think there was a 5-month gap between the end of Hawkeye and this episode. But she has the injury at the beginning of episode 1, which
yeah.
you don't know how long she's been injured for. And
No.
just while we're speaking on that injury, there is a very important point that I did want to raise, in that it's the only time she's injured in the show, as far as I can remember. She takes haymakers to the face and doesn't bruise.
Yeah, I'm also confident she gets pushed through some glass at some point, which doesn't really affect her. She ends up with a bloody lip at one point and maybe a bloody eyebrow.
Yeah.
But she really doesn't take much damage in this
this
series, despite fighting a lot of people. Like, she fights a lot of people.
But her fighting style as well, it's like a brawler.
Yeah.
She's not a brawler. She's not built right. Like, if you put Fisk would be able to do a brawler because he's big. He's got the weight. She doesn't. She's not big enough to be able to do that and shrug off the hits that these guys are given. But it's not even just her. There's a point in the Daredevil fight scene. You might not have picked up on this, but there's a point where in the background, when they're fighting just the goons before Daredevil jumps in, where one of the guys that she's walked in clearly gets shot in the arm at point blank range, and then literally 2 seconds later is shooting someone with the same arm.
Oh. No, I didn't pick up on that.
So no one's injuries actually harm them or cause them to slow down. And considering she's got one leg and she's essentially disabled, her disability in no way in the episode actually causes her any inconvenience. Like, she can do everything that able-bodied people can do better, despite the fact that she's disabled. And I really do think that they've missed a massive arc, character developing arc, where basically they could show that essentially being something which holds her back and her overcoming it.
Yeah,
because you get even more ridiculous than that with regards to the disability. When she gets captured, why don't they just take her leg?
Well, that's just it. Her shoe comes off on that particular leg, and it takes away the foot aspect of the prosthetic. And then one of the women that's captured her just throws the shoe with the prosthetic foot right next to her. I'm like, why? Why did you even pick that up? Why didn't you just leave that where it was?
Yeah, that made no sense. Like, you've got someone who's dangerous. Go on.
Yeah. I was just going to say there was a lot of stupid decisions made by characters in this show.
The thing I was going to say is every single time that they capture her, the first thing that anyone with half a brain cell would do, if she's supposedly as dangerous as she is try to minimize that danger. So you wouldn't give her any weapons, and you take away anything that you could. And again, character building arc, something which slows her down, something which puts her in a position where she could be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, they
would be taking away her leg. But they can't do that. They're not allowed to take a female character and basically show her to be anything other than badass, basically.
Well, speaking of the injury, the leg injury, when they introduced the healing aspect, when the mother was healing the bird in the flashback, I was like, and then it was cutting when the mother's healing the bird, it's cutting to back in the car crash. I was like, ooh, are we going to see the mother healing Maya, basically sacrificing her life's energy so that her daughter would survive while she dies. But no, it was just literally, oh, the mother's already dead in the car. I was
Yeah.
like, you've missed the opportunity to show that her mother sacrificed herself to save her only daughter, which could have helped with character development, showing that she was clearly loved and that maybe she should treat her other family members better than she's currently treating them. But no, they were just like, oh, mother's dead. Let's do that magic thing with our fingers that heals things. And again, what can it heal? What can it not heal? The dynamics of this power were very, very loose. Like, as far as I'm aware right now, Echo could do almost anything. And not
Well,
just Echo. Not just Echo. Apparently, grandmother can do it. Cousin can now do it. It's like, so can we have an army of these women?
the thing is, we don't know if they can do it. We just know that she might be able to give them her power. Like,
Well, we know
intermittently.
grandmother can do it because grandmother gets that thing at the beginning of the first episode, when the car's gonna have the accident. She has a feeling.
She has a premonition that something bad is going to happen because during the pregnancy, she was basically, it was a difficult pregnancy. There were complications. And then basically she saw the vision of the tree person, let's call it. And that the ancestors come to help in an hour of need. But going back to your previous point of coming back to the hour of need to protect your family, basically your tribe, your whatever. Surely that would have been a perfect point in the car crash for them to come back to the little girl and basically announce themselves to the little girl at that point to heal the mother.
Yeah, or do something like, because the first time she gets the powers when her leg gets stuck on the train, right? I'm pretty sure that's when it happens.
Yeah, because basically she impetulantly pushes her hand against the latch on the train. I don't know what it's called. Call it a latch. And she gets super strength and manages to push it away.
Yeah, the connector between the carriages.
And incidentally, I do take back what I've just said, that her disability is never shown to be a liability. In that scene, it's actually shown to be a good thing, because if that was her real leg, well, she'd be fucked.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you'd be bleeding to death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Character Maya in this season, this show, not well developed, I feel.
No.
As someone that didn't know very much about her in any sense until I watched the show, if I hadn't have bothered looking her up in the comic books, I still would have come away being like, who is this character? What can she do? What's her abilities? Don't know. Magic powers, pretty good at fighting, deaf. That's about all I could take away from this. What did you think of the supporting cast of this show?
Are we classing D'Onofrio as supporting cast, or are we classing him as a main character?
I would probably say he's one of the main characters.
Right, okay. Shocking. That's your answer.
Really?
They cook. You know what it is? There's an interview, which, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend that you see it, where D'Onofrio basically comes out and goes, "It's my job to make the most of the script that's basically handed to me," effectively saying that the script was shit.
Yeah.
And his acting alone is what carries that character. But they cook Fisk something chronic in this. Kingpin, he might as well not be the same character. He looks the same from Daredevil to this, but he might as well be a different person.
How so?
They're just not the same. Like, Fisk, when he'd found out that she'd shot him in the head, he would have blown a fucking gasket. Like, once he got pushed to the point, he had serious anger issues. He killed his own dad with a hammer because his dad was beating her man.
Yeah, but
He got shot.
I'm sure in the comic books he forgives her.
he forgives.
Maya for shooting him.
Yeah, well, he forgives her in this, but the problem is he gets shot in the fucking head.
Yeah.
And apparently he's still got 2 eyes despite being shot in the eye as well.
See, that was
the
the bit that was
hardest part of the body.
confusing. Yeah, again, I was confused by that because it was like, okay, you've been shot in the face. Okay, it's not impossible to survive that. It's improbable, but not impossible.
Even if you do survive, you're probably going to be severely disabled, is probably the politest way to put it.
Yeah, but again, this is a comic book movie. You let things slide. So I was willing to let this slide because I was like, okay, he's missing an eye now. Something's clearly happened to his eye. But then when he took the bandages off and he just had a few scars, I was like, what is going on? Like she shot him point blank. It was like there has to be some level of consequence to him being shot in the face, and it's not even losing an eye. That should have been the bare minimum, losing his eye.
Yeah.
So yeah. In fairness, I don't know what he was like in Daredevil because I didn't watch that show either. So I
Mate,
can't say if he was
Daredevil,
great or not.
I'm going to be 100% honest here. Out of all of the Marvel series, the live actions, which have been made, Daredevil is the best. Hands down.
Okay.
And season 1 Daredevil is amazing.
I might have to check it out.
You need to watch it. You need to, you know what it is? You need to watch that. You need to look at Fisk in that and compare Fisk in that to Fisk in this. He's so much more an imposing character in Daredevil than he is in this. He's weak.
Well, I did feel like he wasn't as intimidating in this, but I chalked that up to the actor being much older now.
Personally, I think that once Fisk had woken up, he would have been in a fit of rage that she had the balls to shoot him. And he'd have said something along the lines of, you did what I taught you to do. And then he'd have turned around and went, you just didn't do it well enough. And then beat her to fucking death with the same hammer.
I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about him. Okay, so Fisk, you feel, has been a watered-down version of the character that you were introduced to in Daredevil.
Which is
such
a shame, though, Declan. It's such a shame because it puts you in a situation where you think they're just going to wheel characters out like D'Onofrio or Daredevil whenever they need to sell something. They're just going to put this little cameo in, like they did with Ashoka for Star Wars, when they put basically, they just dangled, Vader in and everyone like wet their pants all over. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go, this'll be cool, and there'll be a character in for like 30, 40 seconds. Makes no difference to the story, but just because they're there, they'll put it in the trailer and they'll go, look, he's in the series, which is exactly what they did with Daredevil. They leaked the fight scene between Daredevil and Echo in advance as a promo for Echo, despite the fact that everything that was in that fight scene was pretty much the entirety of Daredevil's appearance.
Yeah, there definitely should have been. Well, if we get a second season, maybe she'll head back to New York and we'll get a bit more Daredevil interaction. Because apparently in the comics they have they actually fall in love and everything. So that would be. I don't necessarily need to see a love story, but it would be interesting to see them maybe interact a bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
It makes you wonder that if everything that was in this series was the stuff that they didn't cut. Because if anyone isn't aware, it was supposed to be an 8-episode series. They then cut it to 6. It was still so shit that they cut it to 5.
Well, it definitely feels like it's missing stuff.
The runtime, as you pointed out the other day, reduces each episode. So the first episode's longest, and then each episode after reduces by about 3 to 4 minutes. So they didn't even have enough content to basically keep the episode lengths, broadly speaking, the same.
Oh, okay. Speaking of the lengths, there was a lot of time spent watching her ride her motorcycle for no apparent reason.
I'm guessing because they cut so much. If you look at the episode lengths, you're looking at an average, I think, of about 38 to 40 minutes. So they cut 3 episodes. So that's near enough 2 hours of content that they just axed. I couldn't sit through it again, but I would love to see what they got rid of.
Oh no, I definitely couldn't sit through it again. Like I said, I was quite bored. But I personally enjoyed the supporting cast. I thought Uncle Henry was good.
You know what I'll say? Uncle Henry, for me, the only competent character. I genuinely feel like the only character that had a bit of development. It was almost like that.
He was self-aware.
He was self-aware, but we've discussed this before with Alien, where Sigourney Weaver kind of takes the role of the audience, as in you're all fucking insane. You shouldn't bring them onto the, you shouldn't bring the alien onto the spacecraft. We've got no fucking idea what it is.
Yeah.
He seemed to kind of echo with the things that he was saying to Echo. That's far too many echoes in a sense. What I was thinking at times, like, you're thick. Basically, they're going to trace this to here, and they're going to come and basically fuck with your family.
Yeah. And again, she didn't care. She didn't care.
She didn't give a shit. Your problem, not mine.
Yeah. And then, like I say, 2 days later, she's concerned about them.
Yeah, it's just, she's having a barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah, family.
No, but like I say, I thought, forgive me, I don't know who the actor's name is, but I feel that he did a good job with Uncle Henry. I thought Biscuits was good. I have no.
Oh, I cannot disagree more.
Really, you didn't like Biscuits?
I hated Biscuits.
I thought he was just a naive person who was
if you mean simple or retarded, probably.
Well, I'm not going to say simple.
He was a man bitch.
No, I think he was just naive and took advantage of the fact that he loved his cousin and he was just taken advantage of.
Do you know what genuine? And this is something that I noticed throughout the show. And I just need to say this: the director has basically turned around and said that they were framing this from the point of view of basically a deaf person. So the camera shot is shot in such a way that you can see enough so you can see the sign.
Mm-hmm.
The stupid thing, and where it gets moronic, is that they're signing, or rather they're talking at the speed that they're signing. So there's a gap, and no one talks like that. But it's even when there's other people there who can hear, they're talking, they're like talking at the rate that they would sign. If they wanted to just talk to her, they would just sign. They wouldn't mouth the words as they went. And the scene with Biscuits, when she's come out of the house, and we'll get on to another thing about that scene as well, because that was stupid. But he's talking to nobody and signing to her. But then he goes to the dog that makes a noise, like it doesn't quite trust her. And he starts signing to the dog and talking at the same speed that he's signing. Well, the dog doesn't understand signs, so why are you signing at the dog? Why wouldn't you just talk to the dog and just sign to the deaf person? Because talking to the deaf person is redundant.
Not unless they read lips.
Potentially, but it never once tells you that or insinuates that she can read lips.
Again, part of the confusion that I had throughout the show is I wasn't aware if she could or could not read lips. At some points, I was like, I think she can read lips, and then at other points, I was like, I have no idea. Because there was quite a few scenes where she was just in the real world, where the majority of people do not know sign language. and she was still able to get things done. So I was like, how is she achieving these things? I don't know.
And this is where the problem comes. Because if she can read lips, why did Fisk invent her a thing that she can put in her eye that basically will show what the other person is saying inside?
Yeah, that was a great invention as well.
Brilliant invention. She can either read lips and it's redundant, or she can't read lips and she needs it.
Yeah.
But if she can't read lips, then everyone who's basically talking to her very slowly.
I actually felt
It
bad.
doesn't need to be there for the show.
Yeah, I
Like,
felt
you
bad that
could
she mocked him for that.
That she mocked him for giving him for what?
For having that lens made for her, so she could see what people were saying.
Can you imagine how many deaf people who can't, get a cochlear implant or anything like that? Could you imagine what they would give for something like that, which meant that they could just go around their normal day and know what the hell people were saying just by looking at them?
No, but it was just like when she said oh, you couldn't even be bothered to learn sign language. I was like, he's had this thing made for you. That's harsh. Like, it's not easy to learn a new language.
Yeah, and he was clearly far too busy running his criminal empire.
Yeah. So I just I felt that it was unnecessary to say that to him. That one actually stung. I felt that one was harsh. That one was harsh.
But you see, this was part. I think there's a case here where building on to that, a lot of deaf people would kill for that sort of tech that would allow them to basically function in that way. Imagine if everyone had that, like a universal translator, so to speak. Star Trek-y, I know, but a universal translator where you could just understand what people were saying and you didn't have to go through the rigmarole. People would kill for that.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to invent a translator that you can just have within your headphones.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, people are currently trying to make that. Once it's actually done, it's going to be phenomenal.
I reckon they'll use AI basically to. You would assume that would be a fairly easy use for AI, seeing as it can answer or build answers to questions. Surely it can just translate basically what someone's saying in real time.
I don't know. There's probably limitations right now, and that's why it's taking them a while. And there'll be a lot of bugs in the system to work out.
Yeah.
So I'm no computer specialist with that regard, but I imagine we'll probably have one in a decade or so.
Yeah.
I would say at least for the most abundant languages. Maybe it's not some of the more rare languages that only a handful of people speak. But I would definitely say for like Spanish, French, and that sort of stuff, Mandarin, and that, I think those ones would be able to translate.
The more global languages. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
essentially.
I think the biggest limitation that AI would have in something in that regard would be dialects, accents.
Oh yeah, I'll struggle with that just in the
Yeah.
UK alone. But we've got really off topic.
Yeah, we have massively.
So back to Echo. What did you feel about the cousin?
I was just going to say something else. I think that there's a very real case about Echo that could be made that it's actually slightly insulting to disabled people because of the fact that it never ever paints her disabilities as having any effect on her day-to-day life, where any disabled person, any amputee, is going to struggle to do certain things. They're certainly not going to be fighting better than, a trained person with all of their limbs. That there's going to be limitations in some degree. Now, you could have her basically using that as a benefit, like how you might have a sprightly woman fighting a bigger man. The sprightly woman would use agility, flexibility, the ability to move quicker, all of that sort of stuff in order to potentially overcome. You wouldn't have the smaller woman basically going against a bulky man in a brawling match because the bulky man will probably win. And by the same token, they had such an opportunity to build upon her as a character, bringing it back to like basically showing her as being somewhat vulnerable and overcoming that vulnerability in such a way that she could still win, but she had to do it in a slightly different way because of her disability being a limiting factor. There was never a limiting factor, and anyone in the real world, basically, who has a disability will find that as a limiting factor. And I genuinely think that there could be a point of view made on that where it is slightly insulting because basically it paints someone with a disability being able to do everything that able-bodied people can do. And there will be morons out there who will watch shows like this and go, I don't get what all the fuss is with being disabled. I've seen this person on TV do this, this, and this. They're morons, but they exist.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Whether you even thought into it that much.
No, I really didn't. It didn't bother me that much. At some point, in the fights, she did use the leg to her advantage because it's metal, so she used it to hit the other people she was fighting. But to be honest, a lot of the time, I didn't even. It wasn't a thing that I really thought about. Like for a lot of it, her pants leg covers it, so I was just like, okay.
But you see, I think it more bugs me because it seems to follow on basically the Disney tripe that any of these things which could potentially be a limiting factor are just ignored. You can't show a woman to be vulnerable or to be less or held back in comparison with any other type of character. You just can't in any Disney show.
Well, they did touch upon her doing a lot of training at the very start of the show, so maybe she did learn to overcome it. They just didn't show it.
But I guess because obviously you haven't seen Daredevil, which obviously was done by Netflix. Disney didn't touch it. Much better show. There are points where Daredevil's lack of the ability to see have very, very, very real limitations for him.
Of course they would, and also the fact that he has more sensitive hearing. If he's in an environment with a lot of sound, that's going to limit his ability to
exactly
perceive his environment.
There are things like the ability to see is essentially 120 degrees realistically if you ignore peripheral vision where you're not actually truly seeing it. Even if you said 180 degrees, the ability to hear is 360. So the ability, her being deaf could have been painted as something that she was able to overcome through other means. Her not having one leg could have been a limiting factor in another way that she had to overcome. Daredevil overcomes those things in Daredevil and ultimately wins. Yeah, she never has to do any of that development. Never.
No, I'm thinking, and she never gets snuck up on because she couldn't hear the enemy coming.
Despite the fact that she's deaf. And everyone who's hunting her knows that she's deaf.
Yeah.
So none of her disabilities have any meaningful sort of limitation. They just don't. Basically, she's as good, if not better, than any able-bodied person. And that's exactly how the show paints her.
Okay, so let's give it. That's
why it bugs me.
So let's give it your score out of 10. What are you going for?
Out of
10. And a one-sentence summary of why you're giving it that score.
What would you class as a 1? Is the question I'm going to ask.
No, just it's your scale. You don't have to. Like, I'm giving it a 2 because I found it confusing, boring, confusing.
I mean, I've watched some pure shit in my time. 1.5, maybe a 2 if I'm feeling generous.
Okay.
It isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not far off.
Okay. So that's Echo. Don't recommend you watch it, but
No.
it is technically a TV show. So
It's a TV show, but you'd be better off watching most other things in existence beforehand.
yeah.
And if
So
if you haven't seen Daredevil, watch Daredevil. It's better. You know what it is? Just to go back to that. My rating out of 10, I'd rather watch Ashoka again, and I ain't gonna do that.
okay.
So,
So that's at least a nice segue to talk about the Star Wars stuff now.
Precisely. So, obviously Disney's been busy. They've announced several new films. We've got the James Mangold Origin of the Force film, which I can hardly wait. They've got the new Rey movie, and they've just announced the Mandalorian movie.
Okay, well let's start with the first one. Do we know in the expanded universe before Disney bought Lucasfilm, are there any books, stories, comics that touch upon this where the Force started?
I'm not sure, if I'm
Yeah, I
being
have no
honest.
idea either. Because I would be interested.
I have read quite a bit of the expanded universe, but not all.
Yeah, because my question would be, are they going to invent something, or do they already have something to work from? Is my question.
Well, George Lucas invented midi-chlorians for the prequel, so I would imagine that they're going to invent it.
Yeah, well, okay. Exactly. Midi-chlorians were bad, so maybe Disney can come up with something better. I'm not against it. Let's be optimistic.
No. I can't be optimistic. Like,
they might pull it out of the hat. They might pull it out of the hat.
If they're actually going to deal with where the Force came from or anything like that, I have no faith that they will come up with any sort of reason that makes any sort of sense. I think it will be stupid.
I think they're going to struggle.
Reason that they do. If they're just talking about the rise of the Jedis, and if they start to borrow from the expanded universe, basically where Force users, both light and dark, evolved essentially on the same planet, and then were exiled. Basically, the dark side users were exiled, and then landed on a planet called Korriban and founded the Sith Empire because of the species that was on Korriban, who were the Sith. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. You can steal all of the expanded universe story shit because it will be infinitely better than anything Disney comes up with.
Well, that's just it. Disney really should use a lot of the books that they bought, essentially. All that stories and that.
But they decanonized it for a blank slate. But the problem with the... Go on.
Exactly. They decanonized it so they can literally steal just the best parts of the expanded universe and bring it into their universe. Because I personally would love to see a Darth Bane movie / series. I would love to see it.
That would be probably where I would go. I'd either go to the Darth Bane, or I'd go prior to that, and the Sith, basically the Sith Empire and the Old Republic.
Well, they can do both. It's not like they're limited to just doing one time period. Well, it seems like they are, because they're stuck in this bloody 80-year period of Luke Skywalker.
But they're moving it forward a decade at a time.
Because in the prequels, it comes in, it's explained about the Order of Two. Darth Bane, as many of us geeky people know, was the one that instigated the Order of Two. So it would fit well with the universe that's already... It's not like they're just plucking something out of thin air that has no relevance. Like, it's already been introduced.
But you see, that is why I would start off in the Old Republic and the Sith Empire. Then you can have supposedly the big battles and millions of lightsabers that everyone would think are cool. And then you can have Darth Bane come along after the Sith get basically defeated by eating themselves, because for anyone who doesn't know, the Sith win pretty much every time, but then the Sith betray each other, and that gives the Jedi the ability to push them back pretty much every single time. That's why Darth Bane basically goes, we can't win doing it this way. We need to basically distill the entirety of the dark side into two people, a master and an apprentice. So he just kills them.
He's the one that actually defeats the Sith.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Okay.
I would do that. That would be way better.
Again, let's keep it optimistic, Bane. Let's keep it optimistic, because they could do something really good with the Origins of the Jedi film. Could be great. Rey movie, not interested.
4-letter word, shit.
I watched Trilogy as her as the main character, and I did not really find her likable.
What I don't understand is what sort of head case, Kathleen Kennedy, thought that a Rey movie is what the audience is crying out for at this point. A lot of the audience is crying out for you to leave, and that you even remember that when the prequel came out, loads of people thought shit, and now they look at it being, actually, this is decent. Just leave us the first 6 films, and maybe Rogue One. Leave us those films, and then take everything else and just burn it. It doesn't exist. There's a genuine school of thought that the new trilogy doesn't exist.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
Yeah, but speaking of
I've got no
the new
interest in the Rey movie.
You're not putting your trust in it.
Oh, I've got no interest in the new Rey movie. Absolutely no interest.
Well, what I thought was interesting was the last 4 Star Wars films basically are Solo and the trilogy that came out. Now, everyone knows Solo was pretty much an unbridled failure. It was shocking. It made $393 million on a budget somewhere in excess of $275 million. So it was a horrendous loss. Now, that came out directly after A Last Jedi. Now, you could say that basically there was a lot of negative feeling from The Last Jedi. Did anyone walk away from that trilogy positive? And if they did, are they still positive about it now in hindsight? Because there are loads of people out there who watched The Force Awakens and basically turned around and went, that was a really good film at the time. And you'll know, because we're basically lifelong friends, I walked out of that film and I absolutely fucking hated it. I hated the choice of actors. I hated the story. I hated everything about it. But there are a lot of people who walked out and said, that was brilliant, Star Wars is back. And then now they will look at that film and go, in hindsight, that film is dog shit.
Yeah, well, you just get caught up in the hype of things. Like, when you haven't seen a new Star Wars thing for so long and you finally get it, it's like a thirsty man finally getting a dirty cup of water. He's going to love it.
Yeah.
So I would say...
I never felt that. I felt like it was abhorrent.
I wouldn't say I hated it. I just didn't like the aspect that it was essentially A New Hope. It really irritated me that it was like, we didn't need a new Death Star. It didn't need a bigger, better Death Star. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you've already got a machine which could blow up a planet. Why do you need which also wasn't powered by suns? So you could argue more green.
Yeah. And that's just it. They sucked in the sun.
Yeah.
Those planets are dead now.
Yeah,
they didn't have to blow them up.
Didn't they suck in the sun of a different solar system and could blow up planets in other solar systems from that location?
Just suck up the sun in that solar system. Cut out the middle part.
Yeah, and then just fire it out as plasma or whatever it is.
Use it. It's basically they're sucking it in as energy. Use the energy for something else. turn on a microwave. I don't know. You don't have to use it as a gun.
Heating up a burrito.
Yeah, screw it.
Yeah,
Like,
if only the Emperor was still around. Oh, wait. He was.
see,
Just no one knew it.
like my issue is Luke, Han, and Leia obviously all saw the destructive power of the Death Star. They even, when the Emperor started to rebuild a Death Star, made it their mission to stop him. Wouldn't they, after defeating the Emperor and the Death Star twice, have made sure that no organization would build a weapon like that again? So
Yeah.
basically, under the noses of these three people, somebody built a bigger, more powerful weapon.
Yeah, because it wasn't the size of a moon anymore. It was the size of a planet.
Yeah. And at this point where Luke is virtually the only Force user in the known galaxy, surely he would have felt something that this weapon was being made.
Yeah.
Like,
But
so that was that's a massive thing. But anyway, let's not go down the rabbit hole of Star Wars. This isn't a full Star Wars episode.
you know I was going to pick up something there. You knew I was about to get my teeth stuck into something.
Yeah, no.
So kind of back to my point. You've got the last four films. If we take out Solo, which was an unbridled disaster, you have Force Awakens, £447 million budget. Obviously, we don't know what they paid on marketing, but you can assume easily probably another 400 to 500 million. So probably almost $1 billion. Made 2.07 billion, so turned a profit. Last Jedi was made cheaper, 300 million. But I do know that the estimated cost, including marketing for this, was around 800 million, including the production cost. That made 1.334 billion and was an absolute travesty of a film.
Yeah, for me, the worst Star Wars film. I really, really disliked that movie.
The Rise of Skywalker, 416 million to make, only just cleared $1 billion.
Mm-mm.
There's a downward trend of these films where Rey is basically the main character.
But I will say I'm not going to blame Ray for that.
No,
the whole movies are bad.
Yeah, it's the writing, it's the producing, it's the whole thing. They're all shit. But with the quality of Disney's writing being apparent in Echo, The Marvels, Loki, Ant-Man, like all of the writing is homogenized dross that no one gives a shit about. And you're sat there, you're going to probably have the same writers. You're going to have basically a name at best. In fact, no, we know who the producer is. Someone whose only history, realistically, is making documentaries about how women are oppressed.
Mm.
That's the producer of the Rey movie. So it's going to be shit.
Well, I will say that James Gunn was the writer of the Guardians movies, and I will say out of all the movies Marvel's done for Phase 4, Guardians was the best by a country mile. So it does give hope that he's going to be able to write some good DC movies now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he wrote characters. Yeah, Silver Linings. So we'll finish this stream on a high. Silver Linings.
I'm not sure I can. I honestly, I am waiting with bated breath for DC.
Yeah. But well, we'll see. No, well, we'll just see what DC does. We'll see what DC does. Like again, I'm hoping for a good movie. I do not need a universe to be built. I just want good movies with characters that I like. That's all that I want. Like, and great if they introduce characters that I've never really been introduced to before. Great. Fantastic. Would love
Do you
it.
know what I would love? A self-contained story. Something
Yeah.
I don't have to watch a shit ton of stuff to understand, and something that doesn't necessarily have to link into anything other than the next film of that person if it's good enough to warrant a next film.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't need a universe. We just need some good movies.
Yeah. And with that, I guess we'll call it there.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching / listening. As Ben said at the start, this is only episode 1. Hopefully this is going to be a weekly stream. So
I
hopefully you'll...
think next week, as long as we can get caught up, will be Reacher, which I think is finishing on Friday this week.
Well, that's
Uh,
actually a show I want to watch. So
yeah, I'm hoping at the very least that stream will be happy rather than everything's crap like this stream was. But yeah, it should be good. We hope, anyways.
well, I enjoyed season 1, and I've been really looking forward to season 2. But I've been waiting till all episodes were released before I watched it.
Yeah. Without giving anything away, I am loving season 2, and I am bang up to date, and I cannot wait for the final episode. So I'm as long as the final episode isn't a wet fart, I genuinely think next week's going to be a very positive stream.
I look forward to it then. So I'll see
All
you
right.
all then.
Yep. Catch you around, guys.